Hello. Who is the class representative? Okay, so do one thing. Aravind is present. Aravindan from Max department.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please do me a favor. You just send me your you just ask your class representative to send his contact number to my mail ID. Gmail ID I have given in the chat box. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. And who's the class representative for Max Physics department? Okay, then I'll assign one person who is Vigneswaran.
Hello, ma'am.
Okay. Vigneswaran, you also please send me your class representative's contact number to my mail ID. I have given in the chat box. Okay. Please do it today itself because from next week onwards, one of the other two faculties may also start the classes parallel to my classes. So they actually need one. They actually need to fix the common slot for both the batches. So please do it today itself. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So present my PPT. Okay, so in last class we have seen flood management in India, but we didn't finish it. So when we are talking about flood management, so there are two different types of measures. One is structural measure, and second is non-structural measures. So structural measures means it will actually reduce the effects of flooding. Okay, so these are the structural means structures which we are constructing to reduce the flood means the flood effects or to control the flooding event. Okay, so first one is embankments, flood wall, and sea wall. So it actually reduces the overflowing of banks. So not most of the cases, it usually, especially the embankments, these are usually made of earthy material any some soil or clay, some such kind of very easily available material we are using for making embankments. And this is one of the cheapest method to control the flooding. And this will act as a barrier. So the same case happens with flood wall and sea walls also. These are also very cheap methods to prevent the flood water to come to the low-lying areas. Okay. And second one is dams and reservoir. So you all know it can act as a additional storage for excess water which is coming from flooding. Okay. So this is also an important structural measures which can help to reduce the flooding. So next is natural retention basin that also similar to dams and reservoir. It will also act as a additional storage. And next is channel improvement. So actually helps to increase the channel's water carrying capacity. That is normally we used to increase the area of flow. So it is not that common in India because it is very expensive. And in Indian scenario, there are some topographical constraints also for making such channel improvement programs. And next is drainage improvement. So if the size of the drainage system is not adequate, that means if the area of the channel is not sufficient to accommodate the excess flood water. So in this case, what we will do, we will construct some new channel or we will improve the capacity of existing channels. So that is what we mean by drainage improvement. And next is diversion of flood water. So this is simply we are diverting some part of water. Okay, water discharge. So it can be sometimes it can be naturally made or sometimes it can be artificially constructed channel. So which usually lie in the same floodplain or sometimes the channel, the new channel which we are making, so that can lies outside the floodplains also. So this will help to lower the water level in the water system. Okay, so this divide the okay. So sometimes what happens? This deviated water may sometimes rejoin with the same stream at a further downstream. Sometimes it will directly, we will redirect it to some lakes or nearby sea. So this is how we are doing diversion of flood water. And next is non-structural measures. So when we say non-structural measures, so that is actually reduces the susceptibility to flood damage. That means it will reduce the impact of flooding. So now we will see how we are doing this. So there are different types of processes like flood forecasting, warning system, then floodplain zoning, flood fighting, flood proofing, flood insurance. So this all will decrease the susceptibility to flood damage. Okay. So one of the main non-structural measure is flood forecasting. So in flood forecasting and flood warning system, so here we are giving some warning regarding flooding. So this warning system in India has established in 1958 by a commission called Central Water Commission. Okay. Okay, so this is actually they have started for controlling the flood means for forecasting flood in River Yamuna at the Delhi area. But now it has grown and it covers almost all the flood prone areas. So now we are having presently we are having 175 stations for flood forecasting. And apart from Central Water Commission, the Indian Meteorological Department, okay, IMD, IMD and Ministry of Earth Science is also using some modern techniques for rainfall forecasting, and they are issuing warning in India. So even though they are forecasting rainfall, but it can helps to predict the flooding event also. So when we are talking about flood forecasting, it involves mainly four activities. So first, what they used to do means they will observe and collect the hydrological and hydrometeorological data. So whatever data comes related to water, so that they will collect, and then this data they will transmit to forecasting centers. Sorry. Okay. So where we so in flood forecasting, there are mainly four activities. So one is first they will observe and collect the hydrological and hydrometeorological data. Then they will transmit these data to forecasting centers, and in forecasting centers they will analyze the data and they will formulate some forecast. Okay, and this forecast they will issue as a warning. Okay, and they will issue the warning related to flooding. So this is how our Indian flood forecasting system works. Okay, so now we will see which are the different agencies which manage the flood management or mitigation programs, which are the agencies. So the primary responsibility for flood control lies with the states, with the concerned states. And there is a Disaster Management Act which was published in 2005, which explains the institutional, legal, financial, and coordination mechanisms at national, state, district, and local levels. So we will see which are the agencies. So first one is National Disaster Management Agency or NDMA. So this is the main body under Government of India. they implement policies plus they also issue the guidelines for different types of disasters. And there is a wing called NDRE, National Disaster Response Force. So NDRF, sorry. So they also used to coordinate all the rescue operations and post disaster management if a disaster occur. So then there is another research we call NIDM, so National Institute of Disaster Management. So they usually carry out the training, research, and documentation of disaster management in national level. And apart from this, there is a board which is exclusively for flooding. So this is Central Flood Control Board. So that is exclusively for flooding events, and as I said, there is Central Water Commission. So this is a nodal agency for flood-related events and their management. And other than this, there are NCMRWF. So they are National Center for Medium Weather Forecasting. So this is also under DST, and they provide medium range weather forecasting. And then another agency is National Remote Sensing Agency, which comes under ISRO. They also support flood related hazard management. So then National Flood Management Institute is there. And other than this national level agency, there are some state level organizations also, the state level, district and local level, which include the disaster management department for each state, and state disaster management authority, state flood control boards, district disaster management authority, state disaster response force like national disaster response force, and other than this, there are some local bodies also which are dealing with the flood management in India. So with that, we will finish flooding. So now we will move to another hazard called cyclone. So cyclone is a very common disaster in India nowadays. So cyclone actually it is a general term to cover the tropical weather system in which wind speed is equal or more than gale force. Okay, so gale force means that usually comes at minimum the speed of wind will come 62 kilometer per hour. So that is called a gale force. So cyclone is simply we can say cyclone refers to any spinning storm that can rotate around a low atmospheric center, low atmospheric pressure center. So, or else we can simply say like this is a region of low atmospheric pressure surrounded by a high atmospheric pressure. So here in center you can see this is the low atmospheric pressure center, and surrounding there is a high pressure area. Okay, and the center portion of the cyclone is called eye of the cyclone. Okay, so this is center portion. Okay, so now we will see some basic facts about cyclone. So cyclone is a technically refers to any cyclonically rotating circulation. So if you see some characteristics, so this usually associated with some disturbances and accompanied by some powerful winds. Then this normally blowing in clockwise direction in southern hemisphere and anti-clockwise direction in northern hemisphere. That you should remember. So cyclones, because there are other phenomena called anticyclone, which will be just opposite to cyclone. So remember, so in cyclone's case, the powerful wind will blowing in clockwise direction in southern hemisphere and anti-clockwise direction in northern hemisphere. And cyclone mainly we can divide it into two types based on the latitude of occurrence. So there are two different types. One is called tropical cyclone. So this usually occurs between 30-degree north latitude and 30-degree south latitude. Or else it means we can simply say this tropical cyclone usually forms in tropical region, because we have seen there is the whole earth we have divided into five major circles of latitude: Arctic Circle, Tropic of Cancer, Equator, Tropic of Capricorn, and Antarctic circle. So this you have studied in your school level. So this tropical cyclone usually occurs between 30-degree north and 30-degree south latitudes. That is in the tropical region. Okay, so there is another type of cyclone which is called extraterrestrial cyclone. So this will occur in extraterrestrial means mid latitude. Okay, so this is the difference between tropical cyclone and extratropical cyclone. So, okay, if you look at the structure of the cyclone has a spiral inward shape. Okay, the center of cyclone is relatively low pressure and calm and warm also. This cloudless center part is called eye of the cyclone, and the outer part which will be relatively high pressure in nature. Okay, so this is the structure of cyclone. So as I said, now we will see there is another phenomena called anticyclone. So anticyclone is just another phenomena which is just opposite to cyclone. Because in cyclone we saw this is a low pressure zone at the center which is surrounded by a high pressure zone. But in anticyclone, this is it will be having a high pressure center. In cyclone it is low pressure center, but here it is having a high pressure center which is surrounded by a low pressure area. Also, the pattern of wind direction is also just opposite to the cyclone. Here, in case of anticyclone, the pattern of wind direction clockwise will be in the northern hemisphere, and in southern hemisphere it will move anti-clockwise direction. So that's the difference between cyclone and anticyclone. So if you see the Indian case, so in Indian scenario, we are having tropical cyclone because we are coming in the tropical latitude range. Okay. So if you see the classification of tropical cyclone, then in Indian classification scheme, we use many technologies like low pressure area. Sometimes we say there is a depression in Bengal, Bay of Bengal. Then there is a cyclonic storm or severe cyclonic storm, etc. So now we will see what is the Indian classification of cyclones. Okay, so this is mainly based on wind speed. So here you can see wind speed in kilometer per hour is given, and there is another column which is given in wind speed in knots. So knots is just a unit of speed only. So one knot means it is nearly 1 miles per hour. Exactly, if you are saying that will come 1.15 miles per hour. So that is equal to 1 knot, or else we can say it is equal to 1.8 kilometer per hour. So this is an old terminology during 17th century. Most of the time, the sailors used to use this terminology for denoting the speed. So in Indian classification, cyclones can be divided into low pressure area, depression, deep depression, cyclonic storm, severe cyclonic storm, very severe cyclonic storm, and super cyclone. So these are the Indian classification of cyclones. So here I have given the wind speed limit also. If the wind speed is less than 31 kilometer per hour, then we will simply call it as low pressure area. So if the wind speed is between 31 to 49 kilometers per hour, then we will call it as depression. Okay. So if it is between 50 to 61, then deep depression. 60 to 88, then we will call it as a cyclonic storm. And if it is between 89 to 118 kilometer per hour, then it will become severe cyclonic storm. And 119 to 221, it will become very severe cyclonic storm. And if it goes beyond 222 kilometer per hour, then it will become a super cyclone. Okay, so this is the Indian classification. So now there are different names we used to use for tropical cyclones in different parts of the world. So let us see what are the different terms. Okay, so this is the these are the different terminologies which are used for tropical cyclones in different parts of the world. For example, these are mainly for cyclones which is having a wind speed of 119 kilometer per hour. If it is more than 119 kilometer per hour, so that means it will come in this category, very severe cyclonic storm category. So there are different terminologies we used to use for different used in different parts of the world. So first one is typhoon. So typhoon usually, see here you can see this usually we are using this term for if there is a cyclone near northwest of Pacific Ocean regions. So that will cover the Pacific Ocean and China Sea. So if there is a cyclone in this part of northwestern Pacific Ocean area, then we will call it as typhoon. And here, suppose if the wind speed is if it is more than 240 kilometer per hour, then we will call it as super typhoon. Okay. So then, if the same tropical cyclone happens in North Atlantic Ocean, so North Atlantic Ocean means it will come somewhere here. Okay. So if it is occurring near the Atlantic Ocean area, or Northeast Pacific Ocean, uh, east of the dateline. So dateline means it is nothing but this is an imaginary line which runs from North Pole to South Pole and which divides the world into Western Hemisphere and Eastern Hemisphere. So this is a zigzag line. So approximately it comes like this. Okay, so it will divide the entire world into two halves, Western Hemisphere and Eastern Hemisphere. So the importance of this date line means if you are crossing international date line from west to east, then you have to subtract 1 day. Okay, suppose if you are crossing the date line from east to west, then you have to add 1 day. So that is mean by date line. Okay, so this if you are standing in North Atlantic Ocean or Northeast Pacific Ocean east of the date line. Okay, sorry. If you are standing here east of the date line, then we will call it as hurricane. Okay, then we won't use the term this tropical cyclone. Then we will call it as hurricane. And if the tropical cyclones are happening in Southwest Pacific Ocean or Indian Ocean, Southeastern Indian Ocean, that means mainly Indian Ocean area. See here. Okay, then we will call it as tropical cyclone. And if it is in the northern Indian Ocean, then we will call it as severe cyclonic storm. And the wind speed goes above 119 km per hour. And if it is in the Australian region, then we will call it as Willy Willies. Okay. And if it happens in South American region, then we will call it as tornado. Okay. This is not shown in the picture. This tornado and Willy Willy. So Willy Willy means it will come in the this part, Australian part. So here. So if there is a tropical cyclone happens near to Australia, then we will call it as Willy Willy. And if it is near the South American parts here, then we will call it as tornado. So these are the different terminologies we use for tropical cyclone in different parts of the world. Okay. So now, if you go to US, then they are following another classification scheme. So they are using a scale called Saffir-Simpson scale. Okay, so according to this scale, the hurricanes, because the hurricanes, the term hurricane is used for cyclones which happens in US area. Okay, so they have classified the hurricanes into 5 different categories based on their wind speed. So like you see in case of intensity scale in earthquake, so this is also same. So this is a table showing. Okay, so these are the classification. So according to the wind speed, they have categorized into 5 categories. Okay, so this is a table which showing the description of each category in Saffir-Simpson scale. And for the time being, I'm just showing, so you can read it later. Okay. So now we will see nomenclature of tropical cyclones. Okay, so nomenclature means it is simply the naming of the cyclone. So this naming is done for easy identification and to avoid confusion when there are multiple cyclones at the same year. So this naming of the cyclones has started recently. This naming process involves several countries in the region. So it is done under the agency called WMO, that is for World Meteorological Organization. And if you take the case of Indian cyclones, in Indian tropical cyclone, which happens in Indian Ocean region, then there is a formula which came in 2004. So in this naming process, there are 8 countries. Okay, in Indian Ocean case, I am saying. So there are 8 countries which are nearby to Indian Ocean. So which include India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, Myanmar, Thailand, and Oman. Okay, so the cyclone names are submitted to this World Meteorological Organization. So there is a committee called Tropical Cyclone Committee, Regional Tropical Cyclone Committee. So they used to they used to suggest some names. Okay. So this committee can they can approve or reject, adjust, or even substitute with some other names. Okay. So each country will nominate some names, a set of names which are then assigned and sequentially they are giving to this cyclonic storm whenever it comes. Okay. So now you may be familiar with the terms like Fani, Titli, Umfan, Gaja, Vayu, etc. So these are some Indian names for tropical cyclones which happen in Indian Ocean. So, okay, so Okay, so this is about nomenclature of cyclones. So now we will see the vulnerability of India for cyclones. So this blue portions which are very vulnerable for cyclones. So cyclone is one of the major disaster that affects the coastal regions of India. And as in case of flooding, we have seen India has a coastline of 7,516 kilometer long coastline we are having, and this is exposed to almost 10% of the world's total tropical cyclone. And the states which are very prone to cyclones include eastern coast of West Bengal, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, then west coast of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, and Kerala. Plus the island of Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep also comes under very prone states for cyclone. So every year, nearly 5 or 6 tropical cyclones used to form in Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea, and it hits the coast also. Out of this 5 or 6, most of the time, this 2 or 3 cyclones used to be severe in nature also. So when the cyclone comes, it will be mostly associated with severe winds, heavy rainfall, and storm surges. So storm surge means it is the high sea water level. Usually, it goes higher than the high tide water level. So 90% of the loss of lives are due to this kind of storm surges when the cyclone occurs. So most of the cyclones occur in Bay of Bengal, followed by Arabian Sea, and which comes with an approximate ratio of 4:1. And the frequency of cyclone in northern Indian Ocean basin is bimodal in nature. So bimodal means it comes in 2 times. So one comes during May to June time, May June time, and second set of cyclones can occur during October and November month. Okay, so this is about cyclone vulnerability in India. So now we will see how we can manage the cyclones. So as in case of flooding, there are also structural and non-structural mitigation measures for cyclone disaster management. So during cyclone, there can be some damage to means buildings and structures. So an important aspect of cyclone risk reduction management is to ensure the availability of adequate number of shelters, because generally the school buildings and places of worship, community centers, etc., these are normally converted to temporary shelters. So when we try to do structural measures, then we should have strong infrastructures like roads, bridges, communication and transmission system, then powerhouses, water towers, hospitals, such kind of necessary systems we should make sure. And so structural measures include all these strong buildings which can convert as shelters, then good roads, bridge for smooth transport, then good canals for drainage, then better water storing tanks, etc. Plus, we in present situation, we need good communication system and power transmission networks also. And when we are talking about non-structural measures, which include early warning system, effective management of coastal zones, and awareness to people who are very vulnerable to this type of hazards. Okay, so there is a national cyclone risk mitigation project. So individual states are adopting this type of mitigation measures under that project. So now the last slide about early warning system. So early warning system in India. So India has one of the best cyclone warning system in the world. So IMD again, the Indian Meteorological Department is a nodal agency for providing cyclone warning services in India. So IMD is having one satellite called INSAT. So this is used to communicate the important official and they are mainly using this satellite to communicate with important officials and community which are in the affected areas. So they will warn them very quickly, and they have in total some 252 stations in 11 states. Mostly the centers are in cyclone prone areas like Bengal, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, etc. Whichever is coming near the coastal region. And this IMD, they used to send warning bulletins to these states in their local languages. And this way, India is having very effective cyclone early warning system. So that is about cyclone. It was a very small topic. So now we will move to another topic, which is a heat wave. Okay. So in background we can see one image, which is in this you can see the road markings, the Sita lines just got distorted due to melting of road tarring in response to extreme high temperature in Delhi. So this photo has taken during May 2015. So during that time it was the the summer temperature was gone very high. So this kind of effect we can see when there is a high heat wave. So heat wave is a period of abnormally high temperature, which is usually more than the normal maximum temperature. So we know there is a means every year we can experience some we can have some maximum and minimum temperature, average maximum and minimum temperature. So if there is a abnormally high temperature which is more than the normal maximum temperature, then we will call it as heat wave. Okay. So actually this heat or temperature, the temperature we cannot simply say, we cannot compare with one place to another because it depends on many factors like the exact actual temperature plus humidity, then wind direction. There are different parameters which determines the actual temperature or exact temperature. Okay, so usually this type of heat wave is very common in north parts of India, and it usually occur around March to June timing. And in some rare cases it can extend up to July also. So heat wave has recently become very serious concern, like a disaster in India, because before that it was not severe as now. So now it is becoming very severe, and it will be having impact on both health and environment. So that's why we are getting more concerned about heat waves. Okay. So in 2020, means 2020, the temperature in Delhi on May 27th was around 47.5 degrees Celsius. So this was the hottest day recorded in last 18 years. So we can see the intensity becoming more and more. And the global trend of heat waves has also increased in frequency. Frequency means the number of times it happens plus intensity. Intensity means how strong or the what will be the maximum temperature, and also the duration. So the global trend of heat wave has increased in frequency, intensity, and duration. And the extreme temperature affect the people in the form of physiological stress because we won't be comfortable if the temperature is very high. And sometimes it can result in that case also, like sunstroke. You might have read it in newspaper. So if the heat wave is very severe, then some cases it can lead to human death also. Okay. So, as I said, we cannot simply fix the temperature maximum for a heat wave in general because for different places it will be different. Okay. So, based on the actual maximum temperature, so this is for plain area. Okay. The heat wave maximum temperature of for heat wave is different for plain area and hilly area. So, if you are taking the plain area, then it requires minimum 40 degrees Celsius. The maximum temperature should be minimum 40 degrees Celsius to declare a heat wave. But if you are going to hilly area, then they require minimum 30 degrees Celsius of maximum temperature to announce it as a heat wave. Okay. So then, this Indian Meteorological Department. So they have given some criteria for heat waves. So as per this, heat wave need not be considered till maximum temperature of a station reaches at least 40 degrees Celsius for plain area and at least 30 degrees Celsius for hilly area. This is the first point. Okay. So if the normal maximum temperature is above 40 degrees Celsius, then the deviation from the normal maximum temperature is 4 to 5 degrees Celsius or more, then we will say heat wave condition exists. Okay. So normally the maximum temperature is 40 degrees Celsius. So suppose if it is above 40 degrees Celsius, the normal maximum temperature of an area, which is above 40 degrees Celsius, then it should go 4 to 5 degree more. That means if it should come 44 or 45 degrees Celsius, this is a deviation from the normal. So if it is going 44 or 45 degrees Celsius or more, then we will call it as a heat wave condition. Okay. And if the area which is having a normal maximum temperature which is at or below 40 degrees Celsius, then it should reach 45 or 40 degrees Celsius. Then only we can call it as a heat wave. Okay. So if the same case, if one area which is having a normal maximum temperature of 40 degrees Celsius, okay, then if it is going 46 or above, then only we can call it as a severe heat wave. Okay. So if there is a place which normal maximum temperature is 40 or below, then it should reach 47 degrees Celsius minimum. Then only we can declare it as a severe heat wave condition. So this way, the IMD has given a criteria for declaring it as a heat wave. Okay. Also, there is one more thing. When the maximum temperature remains 45 degrees Celsius or more, then irrespective of the normal maximum temperature, heat wave should be declared. So these are the conditions for declaring a heat wave incident. Okay, so this is a graph showing death toll in India due to heat wave during 2016 to 2000, sorry, 2006 to 16 period. So if you see, it has considerably increased. Okay, so here you can see it has considerably increased as the years pass by. Okay, so now we will see what are the health impacts of heat waves. So the main impacts include dehydration, heat cramps, heat strokes, and heat exhaustion. Okay, so there are some signs and symptoms of this type of health impact. So, for example, heat cramps. So, heat cramps means it will be having people will be having swelling and fainting. Okay, and they will be having mild fever. It's not mild fever, so they will be having fever below 39 degrees Celsius or 102 degree Fahrenheit. And heat exhaustion means it mainly includes fatigueness, the weakness, dizziness, headache, nausea, vomiting, muscle cramps, and sweating. So these are the symptoms for heat exhaustion. And heat stroke, this is one of the dangerous type of health effect. So here our body temperature will go above 40 degrees Celsius, and along with that they will be having they may go to some coma state also. So this is the effects of heat stroke. So in these two slides, I have given the safety measures if in case you experience heat wave or some dangerous heat stroke. So what are the things you should do? So these are very simple things. So you can read on your own. So the last slide is about okay, so next is, okay, this you can read at your home. So the last slide is about the management of heat waves. So here we can actually see how we can reduce the risk from heat waves. So there are early warning system and interagency coordination. So that can reduce the heat wave effects. And apart from this, medical accreditation, administrative measures, then public awareness and community outreach, then collaboration with NGOs and other civil society organizations. And before the heat wave occurs, if you can assess the impact, then that can also reduce the heat wave effect. So these are about heat waves. So this is also very small topic compared to the previous topics. So now the remaining is uh, now we have completed heat waves. So remaining is I think wildfire is remaining. Then what else? Then biological disaster. Then last two small topics also we need to cover. So afterwards my topic will be over. So okay, so today okay, one more thing I want to tell you. On Saturday, do you have any class? Can you please reply? Saturday, do we have any class? Which class? Hindi. Okay. At what time? What's the timing of the class? 9 to 10. Okay. So what about afternoon? I'll not take much time. Maybe half an hour or 45 minutes only I'll take. I need to conduct an exam. So 3 to 4 will be fine. Afternoon, Saturday. 3 to 4. All are fine with the timing? Okay, so on this Saturday, 3 to 4, I will fix it. Okay. So it will take only half an hour, maybe, or maximum 45 minutes. So by 3 o'clock, you have to join the link. Means I will send you the link in your Google Classroom, so you can join. And I will give 15 or 20 minutes maximum. So within that time, you have to finish the exam. Okay. So it will be objective type. Descriptive. Okay, fine. So anything else? Otherwise, I will take attendance. Portions. Portions. 1 minute. Let me see. We have covered uh, up to. Okay, first there is plate boundaries, then earthquake, then landslide, then what else? Landslide and tsunami. Flooding. Okay, up to flooding. So the portions will be plate boundaries, that internal structure of Earth, then earthquake, then landslide, tsunami, and flooding. So one, four, five, six topics. Okay, so there will be one more exam after finishing all the topics. So I will be conducting two internal exam. Okay, so it will be on Saturday 3 to 4. If some of your classmates are absent, then please inform them also. Okay.
Examination will be Google Forms or like what, ma'am?
Okay. I will share it in Google Classroom also. But if we are having some WhatsApp group or something, just inform them. Okay. Okay, then I'll take attendance and I'll leave you. So, Alan, Alan,
Present, ma'am.
okay, Amrita.